Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Convention of States, Indiana Live. Let me ask you a question. Do you think we still have a big problem with our federal government in Washington, D.C.? Well, if you do, stay tuned, because we at Convention of States have a solution as big as the problem. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome again to Convention of States Indiana Live. My name is Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana. And I want to welcome you again to our broadcast this evening. The broadcast is going to be broken down into basically three segments. The first segment will be a discussion period. And this evening, we have one of our district captains, soon to be a region captain, I might mention, but one of our district captains, Richard Lokun. And Richard is going to be discussing with me this evening the enumerated powers as set forth in the Constitution. This is always a very interesting topic. So we're going to be talking about just what, according to the Constitution, what our federal government is authorized to spend money on. So be a very, very interesting conversation, I'm sure. The second segment, I'll be going to a PowerPoint. And in our second segment, I'll give you some general information about the state of Indiana and how we're doing here in Indiana as far as Convention of States is concerned. Then the third segment will go on into the PowerPoint, and we'll talk about the basics of Convention of States. These are the three tenets that we practice in Convention of States. So this will be oriented very much to those of you that are tuning in for the first time, that you're maybe interested in Convention of States and want to get more involved. So that's the basics is a good start for you to get involved. Okay, now I want to issue my standard warning, please. In the event that your screen would freeze up or go blank, just be assured that we've encountered a technical problem. And this has happened in the past, and unfortunately, I'm afraid it'll probably happen again. But in the event that your screen goes blank or it freezes up, don't wait for us to come back on. It just takes too much time to get everything up and going again. So go ahead and sign off. Enjoy your evening, and put on your calendar to join us again next Monday evening at 7 p.m. So just want to let you know that ahead of time in case something happens. I know right now where we are in Indiana, we're experiencing some bad weather, so things like that can happen. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our guest this evening. Again, Richard Lokun, excuse me. And there you are. Hi, Richard.
Dale, how are you?
Good. Glad to see you, my man. And Richard, I know you've heard us talking here to open the broadcast, and I'm telling everyone about the enumerated powers of the federal government. So you want to kind of get us started, please.
The enumerated powers are listed in Article 8 of the United States Constitution, and there's specific powers granted to the federal government to lay and collect taxes, borrow money based on states, coining money, punishing counterfeiters, to create a post office, which, you know, my current occupation, I'm a letter carrier, so hey, thanks to that. Okay. It also is to declare war, maintain the Navy. There's a lot of things. Arming, disciplining of a militia, make laws that are necessary for the execution of foregoing powers. So,
Okay.
There's a lot of things that the enumerated give to our federal government.
Now I know you're not covering them all specifically here. You're just kind of categorizing them. But then how many powers then are specifically stated in the Constitution?
Excuse me. Well, I've seen a list of 30. Some people say that some powers have other items in them. They kind of break into like 35.
Okay.
But there's there's 30 enumerated powers.
Okay. Now I think everyone is pretty much aware that the federal government can spend money on maintaining our military, right? That would be all the branches of the military, and obviously if we go to war, then obviously our government's authorized to spend money on that. Now, I think some of the other powers, though, probably are somewhat outdated. Wouldn't you agree that they're not as significant as they were at one time? But still, the point is that in fact our Constitution does provide limits on what our government should be spending money on. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's true. The federal government is supposed to be limited to what they can and can't spend money on, and they have what they call is a general welfare clause, which it provides that through the general welfare clause that it's also known as like a necessary and proper cause. The government could have the authority to deal with like certain issues and things that came up in other areas that weren't really covered by enumerated powers. So things that just all of a sudden just came out of nowhere, basically. But it's getting to the point where the federal government is just using a general welfare cause to spend money on what they think is taking care of everything, which is really not their responsibility or in their role of their duty.
Right. Okay. All right.
Excuse me.
Getting choked up on us there. Well, now I know you had mentioned about some of our founders, James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, had some viewpoints on this, right? When it came to enumerated powers.
Yes. Madison looked at enumerated powers as they were going in addition to what was in the Constitution. The Constitution was very limiting on what the federal government can and cannot do. And Madison it's in the Constitution, it's X, Y, and Z. If it's not in the Constitution, no, he was sticking towards that. Excuse me. And Hamilton viewed the enumerated powers, but he also looked at it with a political aspect, as it should be more fluid as far as the federal government's ability to do things under enumerated powers. So Madison and Hamilton, they didn't see eye to eye on the enumerated powers for the federal government.
Okay.
And now Hamilton was also looking through the enumerated powers as far as banking institutions and whatnot. And up with our enumerated powers, when it spoke about collecting taxes and duties and borrowing money. So Hamilton saw that more as a need for the federal government. And Madison, he did not much care for that whatsoever. He wanted to keep the the ability of the federal government's authority to do things limited, as the Constitution said.
Right.
Cut and dry.
Yeah, I know Madison was pretty much a hardliner when it came to that. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Well, folks, it kind of looks like I have lost Richard. I don't know. I know he said that they were having some bad weather over his way this evening. So
I'm still here.
Bad
Can you
weather
hear me?
may have set in, may have interrupted his signal. That happens. We're going to continue on here, though. I want to. I just want to mention that I'm going to take Richard out of the broadcast here. At least I'm trying to. So. Well, okay. Let's see if we'll go this way. All right. I think with Richard, we were going to get to the point of talking about how Convention of States is going to address this issue of course, government spending, and we covered the enumerated powers, what the Constitution says the government should be spending, and of course we all know that the spending is out of control in our government. And in Convention of States, this is one of the main areas that we want to address by holding a Convention of States for the purpose of amending the Constitution so that we can address or create, I should say, hopefully propose amendments at the convention to address fiscal restraints and limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. So we feel that it's going to take amendments to the Constitution to actually address these particular areas. So we'll move on here then to our second segment. And let me bring up my PowerPoint, and we'll get into the. I don't know what's happening here. Hang on, folks. We're going to be. Things are unfortunately going a little haywire on us this evening. So don't know what's happening. I think there may be some weather factors coming into play here. Okay, I'm just going to be I'm going to talk about what we're going to be covering from this point on, and what I wanted to talk to you about. Let me try it one more time here, and we'll see if I can bring up the. There we go. Now we're. Let's see. Okay, now we're going to get the PowerPoint up. Now let me initiate the. There we go. Now you should be seeing in a full screen view of the PowerPoint. So sorry for the bumps this evening, folks, but that's the way it goes sometimes when we're doing a live broadcast. All right. I want to the second segment. I want to get into some general information about the state of Indiana and how we're doing here. We have resources available to us here in Indiana. The main resource for Convention of States is our national website, conventionofstates.com. So you'll hear us make reference to this website frequently. And if you're new to Convention of States, that's the first place you should go, to this website, conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, and open an account with us. All right, now embedded in that national website is our state website page, which is conventionofstates.com/Indiana. All right, that's obviously a more focused look on the state of Indiana. Social media platforms, we're on a number of them, certainly on Facebook, Convention of States Indiana. As a matter of fact, our broadcast this evening is coming to you through the state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. YouTube channel, COS Indiana. On our YouTube channel, we have, it's very much an educational resource. We have narrated PowerPoint presentations. We have recordings of these broadcasts that we're doing. And also we have links to a podcast that our legislative liaison, Paul Phillips, also you've seen him, he's pretty much a regular on our broadcast. But Paul does a podcast, the Free to Be Free, and we have links to all of his podcasts there on our YouTube channel. So, like I said, very much an educational resource for everyone. We're on Twitter, hashtag COS Indiana, Instagram, Convention of States Indiana. We're on LinkedIn, and always looking to add more social media platforms. Very quickly, some numbers for you. In 2018, we surpassed 30,000 supporters here in the state of Indiana. We've been growing tremendously at about a rate of about 40%. And given that growth rate, we're looking here in 2019 to hit the 40,000 supporter mark, and we're on our way to reaching that goal. Of those supporters, we have about 2,900 volunteers, people that have indicated a willingness to help out if need be. And then we also have about 40 individuals in leadership roles right now. Now, if you're someone wanting to get more involved in Convention of States, I would encourage you, please, go to our website. Here's this national website again, conventionofstates.com. Click on the menu selection, Take Action, and scroll down and look at the various volunteer positions that we have available. If anyone is of interest to you, open it up, read about it. And if you're still interested, go ahead and make application. You're not obligated in any way. But what making application does is then your name will come up on a report that I see, as well as a few others. One of us then will be in contact with you to further discuss the position that you have expressed an interest in. All right? Okay, let's get in now. The last segment, this is I refer to as the basics of Convention of States, the three tenets that form the basics of Convention of States, and that's the problem, the solution, and the plan. And let's talk about the problem. The problem is our government's out of control, lacks the will and the courage to address certain basic structural issues in our federal government. Now, we're not blaming any one political party. Both parties contributed to this problem. It's been going on for decades. It's not something that just happened. This has been going on for decades. But basically, our government and our elected officials lack the will and the courage to address this problem. Now, we've identified in the problem three major abuses that we see going on by the federal government. The first abuse has to do with the national debt. And as we know, the national debt is in excess of $22 trillion. Unfunded liabilities, I've heard estimates of over $250 trillion. Very little, if anything, is being done to address this particular abuse, our national debt. This country must address this and start doing something to reduce this national debt. The second abuse is in the area of the regulatory crisis, what we call the regulatory crisis. This comes out of the administrative state, which is considered now the fourth branch of government. But I know the current administration's been doing some elimination of regulations, which is good, but much, much more needs to be done, as well as controlling and addressing the process involved in creating these regulations. So the regulatory crisis is the second abuse. The third abuse has to do with state sovereignty. When our country was founded, it was founded on the concept called dual federalism, where the federal government and the states would share in power. Well, that's all tilted toward the federal government now. And of course, power and money come into play here, but we also think the career politician plays a big role in this. So these are the three abuses that we see in our federal government that need to be addressed. What's our solution? Well, our solution is right in the Constitution. It's in Article 5 of our Constitution. Article 5 describes the two ways that our Constitution can be amended. And there are two methods. We're going to touch on both of them now. One of them is the one that has been used. The second one has never been used, and that's what we're all about here. But here in method one, in the first method, of course, 2/3 of Congress can propose an amendment, and the amendment then has to be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures, which would be 38 states. Any amendment or amendments ratified then become amendments to the Constitution. Well, there is a second method in Article 5, and we're not making this up. This is in Article 5. And the second method is whereby 2/3 of the state legislatures apply to conduct a convention of states. At that convention, then, any proposed amendments that would come out of the convention would then have to go through the same ratification process as in method one. In other words, 3/4 of the states, or 38 states, would have to ratify any proposed amendments to become amendments to the Constitution. This is what we're all about in Convention of States. We want to see this Convention of States held, and we want to see, of course, at the convention, we want to see amendments proposed that will address the abuses that we see going on with our federal government today. Okay, well, what's our plan to bring this about? Well, our plan has two parts to it, actually. The first part is what we call the application strategy. This is where states apply for the convention to be conducted. And as we said, we need to get to 34 states. 34 states have to make application in order for this convention to be held. Now, Convention of States has designed the application that we want the states to use and pass. And in that application, in the subject matter of the application, which the subject matter determines the agenda at the convention, but in that subject matter, we address fiscal restraints, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. And term limits, we believe, will address the career politician abuse. So fiscal restraints, limiting power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. Those are the areas that we want to see at the convention. We want to see amendments proposed that would address those three areas. The second part of our plan is mobilizing the grassroots. And when I say the grassroots, I'm talking about you and me and our state legislators. Our state legislators, they are very important part of the grassroots mobilization. We're now in all 50 states across the country. As I mentioned earlier, in Indiana, we're over 30,000 supporters, striving to hit 40,000. We're over 3.9 million across the country. So our movement is continuing to grow and continuing to gain momentum. We have 15 states right now that have passed this application to hold the convention. Indiana is one of those 15 states. We were the 6th state to pass the application. So we're on our way to making this happen, and we need your help. So if you're interested at all in getting involved, please go to our website, conventionofstates.com, and sign the petition and look at maybe perhaps even volunteering in a leadership role. All right. Let me get back to then myself. There I am again. Okay, I want to note some people that have tuned in this evening. Sherry Barnes, Sherry, or is that Baines? I'm sorry, Sherry, I can't tell your last name. I think it's Baines, Bames. Sherry, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Linda Zach. Linda, thank you very much for joining in this evening. Jennifer Spencer. Jennifer, thank you. I think I remember seeing you on our broadcast last week. So I want to thank you for joining. Well, I guess Richard is watching us. So he made a comment here that he lost his feed, and so that's why we lost him. So it happens. I understand. Jerry Rowe. Jerry is one of our leadership individuals in our organization. So Jerry tunes in every week, and we appreciate him tuning in. All right. Well, let's wrap things up here. We're going to wrap up maybe a few minutes early this evening, but that's okay. That's kind of the way things go sometimes. And I don't know for sure why my screen is there. I am okay. Well, I like to wrap things up with a favorite quote. You've heard me say this before. And this is a quote from one of our founders in Convention of States, Mr. Mark Meckler. And Mark says that there's a fundamental question facing our country today. And the question is not what should we do? The question is who will decide? And basically he's saying then the question facing us is a two-word question. Very simply, who decides? And obviously we think we the people should have a stronger say-so in making the decisions of our country. So folks, thank you for tuning in this evening. I might mention before leaving that I think next week, next Monday evening, we're going to have Paul Phillips is going to come on and join me, and we're going to be talking about one of his recent podcasts, and it's going to be socialism or capitalism will be the topic that we'll be talking about next Monday evening. So please put us on your calendar to tune in, and we hope to see you then. So everyone have a very, very good evening. Thank you very much.